Hi, Community Church, and thanks for joining me today. Today, I am coming to you from our beautiful chapel. And as I got set up here this morning, there were several loud noises and distractions going on around. To one side of our chapel, our lawn service was here with the mower and the blower going, pretty loudly. To the other side of our chapel, our preschoolers were out on the playground and very loud and lively and energetic. It's a wonderful sound to hear. And then, of course, if you're in our chapel, you know that all the traffic going by on 1792 can be quite loud. And so, in the midst of all of these distractions and loud noises that were going on, I was reminded that Psalm 46 tells us to be still and know that He is God. And so I had to take just a moment amid the distractions and be still. And I hope that you get that opportunity some point today in the midst of our busy lives, all the distractions, all of the loud noises that are going on. I pray that you get at least just a moment that you can be still and know that He is God. Today I want to share a quick story with you. We're going to be talking about hospitality, and we have a wonderful service ministry in our church that's called Radical Hospitality, and I love that we call it that. And so we're going to look at some scripture verses and talk a little bit about hospitality today. But I want to share a story with you that just happened yesterday, and it really moved me. So it shouldn't be a surprise to you that most of my time right now is spent planning and preparing and organizing our mission trip that's coming up the first week in June. We are taking a group of 18 adult chaperones, college students, high school and middle school students, up to Pensacola, Florida, June 5th through the 12th for 1 week, to help with some storm damage. I don't know if you're familiar, but over the summer hurricane months, the Panhandle was just hit over and over and over again by multiple storms. And there are still many families that need work done on their homes to restore them to just regular living conditions. So that's what we're going to be doing. And our check-in day with our trip is Sunday night between 5 and 6. And I realized that if we were to make that time, we would not be able to worship at church on a Sunday morning. So I didn't want us to leave on Sunday because I thought it was really important, especially for our young students, to be able to worship together on Sunday. So we're leaving the day before on Saturday, and I figured we'll go up early and we'll rent a hotel for that one night, and then we'll continue our trip. Now, Sunday morning, we are going to church in Pensacola at a friend of mine's church. We went to seminary together, and I've never been up there to visit, and so I'm excited that they welcomed us with loving arms. They're excited for us to worship with them. They're going to offer us a meal afterwards, which is just incredible hospitality. But then they did this yesterday. They said, why would you look and stay at a hotel on Saturday night? We'll house you. We're a small church, but we can make it work. And if you are okay to split up your group with 3 to 4 people per household, we would love to house you and then worship with you Sunday morning and then provide a meal for you. And I was just blown away with that kind of radical hospitality because that's what the church is supposed to do. We're going to look at some scriptures here in a minute. But oftentimes, that's just not the case of things that happen anymore in our society. We've become very, I don't want to be too pessimistic, but our society has become very cautious especially with outsiders and people we don't know, and we want to be safe and closed in. And so the hospitality of inviting strangers into our homes and into our worship space, into our comfort space, is rare. It's rare to see. And so I love it when faithful believers in the church, regardless of our denomination, we are all part of the same church, reach out to each other and welcome each other with open arms and just extend that radical hospitality. It warms my heart. And so I hope that you take some encouragement from that. This Sunday, we were actually taught a youth group on Sunday. We read at the end of Acts chapter 2, where they're talking about the early church and how it was set up, and it was a place of hospitality. Let me read you a couple verses. So Acts chapter 2, verse 44 says, "All the believers were together, and they had everything in common. They sold property and possessions to give to anyone who had need. Every day they continued to meet together in the temple courts. They broke bread in their homes and ate together with glad and sincere hearts, praising God and enjoying the favor of all the people. And the Lord added to their number daily those who were being saved." I love this story, and I feel like the church sometimes loses track of that we have to maybe go out and evangelize and do certain things and do all this work in order to get new people to come to the church and be new members. And a lot of those things are good and true, but according to the early church, all the people did was fellowship with each other. They had radical hospitality. They ate in each other's homes. They had things in common. When there was a need, they sold their goods and everybody helped provide for whatever need there was in their community. And this is what our church model is based on. And so I feel like we still do a really good job of some of those things. But it's always great to look back on, like, wow, what a great example that they were for us. I have a few other scriptures that talk about hospitality. In 1 Peter chapter 4, I'm going to read to you verse 9 and 10. It says, "Offer hospitality to one another without grumbling. Each of you should use whatever gift you have received to serve others as faithful stewards of God's grace in its various forms." I like this because the Jewish culture was hospitality was a very big deal in their culture. You may have heard stories or snippets, but in Jewish culture, especially in the Old Testament, and then even during Jesus's time, when a stranger came to your house, you were not supposed to deny them anything. You were supposed to welcome them, give them a safe place to stay, give them food, and offer hospitality without grumbling. And sometimes we're really good at this, but sometimes it's hard, right? It can be hard for us to be like, oh, sure, yeah, come in, and it's not a burden to us at all. And there can be some grumbling. It's not necessarily human nature to give freely without grumbling. So I want to make that distinction. If you grumble sometimes in your heart, know that that's very human, that's normal and that's natural. But God calls us to be above that, to offer our gifts, our service, and of course our hospitality without grumbling. I just want to point out there are two other scriptures that specifically talk about hospitality. Actually, there are three. Sorry about that. But one is in Timothy and one is in Titus. And those two are talking about the characteristics of a leader in the church. Now, we're not just talking pastors. We're talking really any leader, anybody who wants to serve and be in some kind of ministry. And there's a list of qualities that these people should have. They should be upstanding citizens. But both of those lists list hospitality as a very important quality for a leader in the church to have. And I think that's really interesting because sometimes we gloss over that part, right? We think, the most important qualities for a leader to have are like maybe their relationship with God or their knowledge of the Bible, their education, their ability to speak, their ability to lead. And while those are all good qualities, a lot of times hospitality gets kind of brushed under the rug. But Scripture is very clear that is a very important characteristic for any leader in any ministry in the church to have, is radical hospitality, giving without grumbling. And so I just wanted to share that with you today because it really touched me that my friend, who I haven't seen since seminary, we keep in touch through Facebook and email and other social media, but I haven't seen since seminary, and that was like 12 years ago. And I said, "Hey, we're coming to your town. Can we worship at your church?" And not only did they say, "Yes, we'd love to have you worship at our church," they said, "Please, can we feed you a meal afterwards? Stay with us and break bread with us." And then they said, "Don't stay in a hotel. Please, we would love to house you in our homes." And I just was so touched by that because We're not a small group. A group of 18 could be hard to house. And they're not a big church. They're a smaller congregation. And they did so without hesitation and without questioning. And so I hope that that story and these scriptures just encourage you today, that hospitality has a huge range of opportunities. It could be greeting a new person at church. I know that our ushers and our greeters are very important at church. They're part of our radical hospitality team. It could be being nice to your neighbor. It could be being nice while you're driving and that person who makes a mistake, instead of honking your horn, maybe being gracious. That one's really hard for me, I'll tell you. It could take many different varieties. Just giving someone, a stranger walking down the street, a smile. I know it's hard behind masks, but through your eyes, you can still tell that someone is smiling. So I hope that this encourages you to, one more way to be the light of Christ is through our hospitality. People notice and it makes a difference. So thank you for joining me today. I hope that encouraged you, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Take care.